and had nowhere to sleep that night. 12 years later, they burst into my boardroom. "Only you can stop the bankruptcy," my father said, breathless. I leaned back in my chair, CEO of Caldwell Systems, the largest logistics firm in the Midwest, and glanced at my watch. "You have 5 minutes," I replied. "Starting now." My father's face was pale, sweat beading on his brow despite the crisp Chicago air conditioning. My mother clutched a faux designer handbag like it held their last hope. And Meredith, my sister, their golden child, couldn't even meet my eyes. 12 years. 12 years since they'd brought me into that cold law office in Oak Brook and told me Grandma Ruth's will had been changed for the good of the family. "It's better this way," my father had said then, sliding the documents toward me. "Meredith has a household to maintain. You're still figuring things out." I was 19, a sophomore at the University of Illinois on a partial scholarship, juggling 3 jobs just to afford textbooks and rent. Grandma Ruth had always said her estate would be divided equally. "My girls," she called us, "my legacy. 5 million each." That was the promise, but I got nothing. "How?" I asked, confused, scanning the paperwork. "Grandma was a little unclear at the end," Meredith had said smoothly. She was 27 then, married to a hedge fund guy, living in a 5-bedroom colonial with a pool. She signed a new will. Everything comes to me as the older, more stable granddaughter. "That's not what she wanted," I'd said. "And you prove that," the lawyer cut in, "because the evaluations show she was fully competent when she signed." I looked at my parents for some kind of support. None came. "She's building a family," my mother had said quietly, nodding toward Meredith. "You don't even have a boyfriend." "I'm 19, I repeated. "Exactly," my father said. "Too young for that kind of money." "You'd waste it," Meredith added. "This keeps it in responsible hands." By responsible, they meant hers. "The decision's final," she said coolly. "Sign the acknowledgement." "And if I don't?" "Then we'll contest your right to anything," the lawyer said. "The car, the tuition support, gone." They had already drained my college fund. I found out a week later. So I signed. Then I disappeared. I worked. I saved. I built a logistics startup out of a back room at a printing shop in Champaign, armed with an old laptop and a relentless drive. It grew. I grew. 12 years of silence. Until today. They're here because Meredith's luxury retail company is failing, and they need the Caldwell name to secure a loan. Problem is, Grandma's trust legally linked the brand to a dormant entity I quietly acquired 5 years ago. Only I can activate the clause. Their lawyer knew it, so did they. I looked over the paperwork. Meredith stood there silent, as always when things get hard. I smiled. "You said I'd waste the money," I said, folding my arms, "but it looks like I was the only one who didn't." The car had been in my father's name. I was 19, too naive to realize what that meant when I signed the title away. I thought family meant trust, that blood protected you. Instead, I walked out of that law office with nothing but the clothes I wore, and a fury so deep it could have scorched the sky. The first year nearly broke me. I dropped out of the University of Illinois. I couldn't afford tuition without the college fund they had already drained behind my back. I lived in my car until it was repossessed. I slept in 24-hour laundromats, rotating between the same 3 outfits, washing one while I wore another. I studied coding on library computers, surviving on instant noodles, and determination. "You could come home." That was the only text my mother ever sent. "You apologized to Meredith." Apologize for being robbed? I deleted her number. At 20, I caught a break. A tiny startup in Milwaukee was desperate for cheap developers. I didn't have a degree, but I had a portfolio of self-taught projects. I lied, got the job. The pay was terrible, but it bought me a bunk in a moldy shared apartment and a microwave to heat instant mac and cheese. I worked 18-hour days, learned fast, built faster. That company failed in 8 months, but I left with contacts. The next job paid better. The one after that offered equity. By 25, I'd co-founded my own fintech startup with a fellow developer named Malik. He'd been disowned by his own family after refusing to sell his grandmother's house behind her back. We understood each other. "We need to build tools to stop what happened to us," Malik said during our first late-night planning session. So we did. We created digital vault systems, inheritance locks, and elder abuse alerts, tools to protect people from the kind of betrayal I'd lived through. Every line of code came from experience, every feature was personal, and the world needed it, badly. By year 5, we weren't two scrappy coders in a garage anymore. We were a Silicon Valley powerhouse with 300 employees and a valuation pushing $1 billion. I, Natalie Greer, had done it. From laundromats and repossessions to executive lounges and tech summits, I'd built an empire from the wreckage of my family's lies. Meanwhile, Meredith? She tore through Grandma Ruth's money in less than a decade. Bad investments, her husband's gambling, a lifestyle fueled by appearances and debt. Even worse, they had leveraged the Greer family construction business, founded by my grandfather, expanded by my father, just to keep up with their collapsing facade. Which brings us to now. This boardroom, my boardroom, where they sat, my parents and Meredith. Across from me, like beggars at the gates of a castle they once told me I'd never enter. I looked down at my Patek Philippe, a watch worth more than the car they said I didn't deserve. "Time's ticking," I said flatly. My father swallowed hard. "The business is failing." I leaned back in my leather chair, the skyline of San Francisco glittering behind me. "You don't say," I replied. And for the first time in 12 years, I saw fear in Meredith's eyes. "We need an immediate injection of capital or we lose everything," my father said, voice cracking. "The house, the company, everything. We need 15 million. I raised an eyebrow. "Today?" He nodded. "Today. The bank called the loans." "Fascinating," I said, flipping through a report. "Why would I care?" My mother leaned forward, eyes watery. "Your family." I looked at her calmly. "I was family when you stole my inheritance. How'd that work out for me?" "We didn't steal anything," Meredith said sharply. "Shut up," I said without looking at her. "You manipulated a dying woman. Forged documents. Or coerced her, I don't know which. And I don't care." "That's not what happened," Meredith started. "You took what was mine," I said, meeting her eyes, "and you laughed while doing it." "You can't prove any of that." "Actually," I said, reaching for a folder, "I can." Her face twitched. "Remember Grandma Ruth's nurse? Lovely woman. She carried guilt for years about what she witnessed. When she saw my name in Forbes last year, she reached out, opened the folder and laid down the first page. A sworn affidavit," I said, "from the nurse, detailing how you visited Grandma every day during her final month. How you brought documents. How you told her I had died in a car accident. Tragic, really." Meredith went pale. "You said she needed to protect the family assets. That I'd want her to. That she should leave everything to you because I wasn't coming back." "That's not..." I cut her off. "I also have a report from a forensic accountant. Want to guess what it says?" No one answered. "It shows how the family accounts were drained over a decade. Gambling losses, sketchy offshore investments, affairs, lavish vacations. Tell me, Meredith, does your husband still go to that casino on Highway 8? Or did they finally ban him after that little incident?" Silence. 12 years ago, you had $10 million. 5 from Grandma. 5 you stole from me. I folded my arms. Now you have nothing. Negative nothing, actually, I added. It's incredible how fast money disappears when you didn't earn it. "Please," my father said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We made a mistake. We see that now." "You see it now because you need my money," I said. "If you were still rich, I'd still be dead to you." "That's not true," my mother whispered. "When's my birthday?" No response. "My middle name?" "Nothing." "What company do I run?" My mother fumbled. "Something with computers." "Get out," I said flatly. Natalie, please, she said, standing. Oh, I said coldly. So now you remember my name? You're desperate, Meredith said suddenly, voice cracking. Isn't that enough for you? You've won. You're rich. You're successful. Everything I'm not. Are you happy now? I stood and walked to the window. The city sparkled below, my skyline. Happy? I repeated softly. No, I said, but I'm content. I turned around, and that's something none of you will ever buy back. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more moments of quiet revenge, strength, and transformation. The next chapter of Natalie's journey is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what comes next. There's a difference, I said quietly. Happy would have been growing up with a family that valued me. Happy would have been using Grandma Ruth's inheritance for grad school, starting my company without sleeping in laundromats, building something with love, not spite. So, you'll help us? My mother asked. I turned back to face them. I'll make you an offer, the same one you gave me. My father frowned. What do you mean? You made me sign everything over to Meredith. Now I want the same. The company, the house, all remaining assets, I said. In exchange, I'll pay the debts. And we'll have nothing, my mother whispered. Nodded. You'll have each other. Family, remember? That's supposed to be enough. But where will we live? She asked, her voice cracking. Not my problem. I gave Meredith a pointed look. Maybe your children will take you in. Oh, wait. That's right. They cut contact last year. Something about toxic grandparents, wasn't it? Meredith broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks. 12 years ago, I had cried like that, begging her through sobs not to take everything. The cemetery was almost poetic. You can't do this, my father said, standing. We're blood. I laughed, low and sharp. You bled me dry and called it love. You threw me away like garbage, and now you want recycling privileges? No. So you'll let us rot? My mother asked. I'm giving you a choice, I replied calmly. The same one you gave me. Sign it all over and walk away with nothing. Or, I added, face bankruptcy and prosecution. For what? Meredith asked, eyes wide. Elder abuse, I said plainly. The statute of limitations hasn't expired, and I have a team of lawyers who would love to bring that case to court. This is revenge, my mother accused. No, I said. This is justice. Revenge would be buying the bank that holds your loans and foreclosing on your home today. I tapped my phone, which I could do with a single call. They looked at each other, panic dissolving the decades of power they had taken for granted. I saw it happen in real time. The moment entitlement turned to fear. We need time to think, my father muttered. You have, I said, checking my Patek Philippe. 30 seconds. The bank closes in an hour. After that, my offer vanishes. And you can explain to a judge why you told a dying woman her granddaughter was already dead. Fine, Meredith snapped. We'll sign. I smiled and pressed the intercom. Julia, bring in the documents Mr. Kozlov prepared. My assistant entered a moment later, carrying a thick stack of contracts. The irony? Mr. Kozlov was the same lawyer who had helped them steal from me. I hired him away from his firm last year with a salary he couldn't refuse. Poetic, isn't it? I said, watching them sign. Same conference room design as 12 years ago. Same thick paper. Same crisp pens. Same devastation, only this time, on their side of the table. You're enjoying this, my father muttered bitterly. I looked at him, unblinking. I'm enjoying the symmetry, I said. The justice. The proof that you were wrong about everything, I said softly. You didn't love me, you loved Meredith. My father looked away. You tolerated me. Until I became inconvenient. They said nothing as they finished signing. Everything they had built, everything they had stolen, now belonged to me. Congratulations, I said, stacking the documents. You're officially nobody. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. What happens now? Now? I stood, adjusting the sleeves of my blazer. You leave, start over. Maybe you'll surprise yourselves. Maybe hitting bottom will build character. I looked at Meredith. Maybe you'll finally understand what you put me through. Or, she asked bitterly, or you'll blame me forever. Learn nothing, die bitter. I shrugged. Either way, not my problem. I pressed the intercom. Security. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside. They didn't resist, just gathered their things and followed. I watched from the corner window as they stood on the sidewalk. 3 figures cast in shadow by the city lights. Lost, hollow. 12 years ago, I stood in a parking lot with nothing but a backpack and enough rage to burn through steel. I wondered if they had even half that much resolve. My phone buzzed. Malek. Did you do it? It's done. How do you feel? I looked out at the skyline. Empty, I typed. Then added, full, everything and nothing. That's normal. What will you do with their company, he asked. Dismantle it. Sell the pieces. Donate the money to organizations that help victims of financial abuse. And the house? Turn it into a women's shelter. You're sure? I don't need their things. I stared at the quiet street below. I needed them to understand. Do they? I watched as they disappeared around the corner. They understand they lost. Whether they understand why, that's on them. That night, I sat alone in my penthouse, high above the city that had rebuilt me. I pulled open a drawer and took out the only photograph I had kept from my childhood. Grandma Ruth and me in her garden, both of us covered in dirt, planting roses. I did it, Grandma, I whispered. I protected your legacy. Not the money, that was never the point, that was just paper. But what she gave me? Strength. The ability to grow something beautiful from brutal, unforgiving ground. The roses we planted? Probably gone now, but the ones I grew, my company, my mission, my peace, they bloomed despite everything. Or maybe because of it. The next morning, headlines exploded. Tech CEO executes ruthless takeover of family business. They called me cold, strategic, unforgiving. They weren't wrong, but they missed the real story. The one about a 19-year-old girl who gave up everything just to be seen as worthy, who signed away her inheritance to keep the peace, then built an empire to prove she didn't need anyone's permission to be powerful. Some things can't be stolen. Like vision, grit, the ability to turn betrayal into billion. My family gave my legacy to my perfect sister. 12 years later, I inherited everything they had built and gave it away. Not because I needed revenge, because that's what you do with poison. You don't swallow it. You distill it into something that heals others. Then you walk away, finally free from what they took and everything you reclaimed. And that boardroom? Just another room now. But the view from the top? Absolutely perfect. I'd love to hear from you. Your thoughts, your support, your advice. If you've ever been underestimated, pushed aside, or had to build your worth from ashes, drop a comment below. Tell me what you would have done. What would you say to someone like me, who turned betrayal into a billion-dollar legacy? And if you're going through your own storm right now, remember, you don't need permission to rise. Subscribe to this channel so you never forget what quiet power looks like. Let's keep growing, together, stronger, wiser, and unapologetically ourselves. Your story matters. So does how you choose to write it.